It's common to think that successful gardeners have green fingers and thumbs. They're just lucky with plants. Well, I don't believe that. I've been doing this for more than 30 years, and today I'm going to reveal the 3 overriding principles smart gardeners follow every year that practically guarantee bigger, better harvests. If I had to pick just one skill that makes the most difference, it would be learning how to create fabulous soil. And it doesn't matter what you're starting with, whether dry and sandy soil or a wet, claggy clay soil or anything in between, you can create great soil with a little love and patience. The first thing to do is to establish what sort of soil you have. So just grab some in your hand and give it a squeeze. Now, sandy soil has quite big particles, which means water drains through really well, but sometimes too well, and nutrients can get lost because of that. Clay soil, on the other hand, like this, is made up of lots of really fine particles that form a much denser crumb structure. That means that water doesn't drain through quite as well, and in fact roots can find it quite hard to penetrate thick clay soils like this. Now, the solution with both soil types, and indeed any soil in between, is to add plenty of organic matter such as compost, well-rotted manure or aged leaves. Over time, lovely rich organic matter such as this garden compost will help to break up compacted clay soil by creating air pockets that facilitate drainage and make it easier for roots to penetrate. On the other hand, in sandy soils, it will create a more cohesive soil structure, which will help the sandy soil retain moisture and nutrients that little bit better. Even ideal loam soils, which have a good mix of sand, silt and clay and have good nutrients, will also benefit from lovely organic matter such as this. Basically, when it comes to great soil, it's simply a question of whacking on the organic matter. I like to add mine in early winter, but I still have this little area here to cover ahead of planting in spring. And here's a particularly useful tip. You don't actually have to dig this stuff in. I just like to lay it about 1 inch or 3 centimetres deep onto the soil surface and then leave it alone for the worms to dig in for me. Improving the soil isn't just a winter job. Adding organic matter during the growing season will help to lock in soil moisture by slowing evaporation, and it'll protect plant roots against extreme fluctuations in temperature. Then, as all this lovely crumbly material further decomposes and gets incorporated into the soil, well, it will also add essential nutrients, further supporting healthy plant growth. Even if your soil is poor, it's not a lost cause. Regular applications of lovely manure, compost or leaves, applied whenever you get the chance, can dramatically improve your soil. If you're after instant results, there is a shortcut. Consider filling and planting up raised beds to create ideal areas of growing medium, and I'll link to a video on how to do that in the description below. Once you have fed your soil, the next key to success is to raise strong seedlings. It all starts with high quality seeds from a reputable supplier sown at the right time. If you're unsure about the best time to start seeds, well, check out our garden planner, which creates a personalised plan of when to sow and plant for your local area as you add plants. I rarely bother with seed starting mixes. Instead, I just prefer to sieve or screen an all-purpose potting mix or bags of multi-purpose compost. And this way I get that lovely fine crumb structure for sowing without the extra expense. Now, potting mixes of any type are ideal for seedlings and young plants because they're light, sterile and nice and open. Now, you might be tempted just to use ordinary garden soil from outside. That's fine for sowing directly outside, obviously, but not great for starting things off in pots and plug trays. Now, the reason for that is that the purpose-sold potting mixes have an absolutely perfect texture, which means optimal moisture, oxygen and nutrient content, which is ideal and tailor-made for the roots of young plants. Outdoor soil in pots just won't do that, so you might as well give yourself a head start with purpose-sold potting mixes. Just look at the roots of these shallots, for example. They've got an absolutely fantastic root system because they're in beautiful potting mix. Seedlings need consistent light, moisture and warmth to thrive. Now look at these little seedlings here, struggling on despite the cold, and they'll be fine once it warms up a bit. But at this time of year, natural sunlight is generally insufficient for sowing many different seeds, especially warm season crops, which is where my next tip comes in. You'll get much stronger seedlings if you use grow lights like these, giving additional light for an optimal range of between about 12 and 16 hours of light per day. Position the lights close to the seedlings, but not so close that they overheat. Potting mix needs to be consistently moist. You want to keep it moist but not overly wet and sodden, which would encourage the roots to rot. Now, soil temperature is important too, or potting mix temperature. Most seedlings like to germinate in temperatures of between about 60 to 75 Fahrenheit, which is around 15 to 24 degrees Celsius. Now, a heat mat can really help with this. It doesn't cost much and it will improve both the germination rate and speed. A heat mat can really speed things up. These cucumbers were sown just 5 days ago and I've now moved them to under the grow lights, but the speed is quite phenomenal. Once seedlings sprout, you want to ensure good airflow around them to prevent any chances of mould or fungal diseases. Now, I achieve this here in the greenhouse by just leaving windows and doors open on milder days. If you don't have a greenhouse, don't worry. Seedlings naturally become stronger over time, especially with the gentle rustle and tussle of wind. Now you can mimic this in an enclosed environment by popping a fan on a low setting to gently disturb your seedlings. I don't do that, but what I do sometimes do is just run my hand over the top of seedlings to mimic that kind of motion of the wind, and this helps to create stockier, sturdier seedlings. It's by no means essential, but I reckon it's worth doing when you remember. As seedlings grow, you'll need to thin out or remove the weaker seedlings to avoid overcrowding, leaving just the strongest behind to grow on. Now, this might seem a bit mean, but it really is essential to give the seedlings that remain all the resources they need to grow big and strong. Then, before transplanting outdoors, harden off seedlings raised under cover or indoors by gradually exposing them to outdoor conditions over a period of about 7 to 10 days. This step helps them acclimatise to wind, sunlight and temperature changes, reducing the chance of transplant shock and ensuring you have much healthier plants. We'll be covering more on seed sowing over the coming weeks, but if you would like to know more on getting your seedlings off to a flying start, well, I will link to a video on just that in the description below. And with those healthy, standing to attention seedlings ready to roll, how can we grow them on into truly thriving plants that will give us the biggest and best harvests? Proper spacing is so important when it's time to plant out your seedlings because it'll avoid overcrowding, which would otherwise reduce airflow and increase the risk of pests and diseases. Now, setting plants out at their proper spacing will ensure that each plant has plenty of access to enough light, water and nutrients without competing with their neighbours. It'll just give stronger plants that way. Now, it's all too easy in our enthusiasm as gardeners to try and cram things in to push the boundaries, but really it's a false economy because by doing that you're going to get poor substandard plants. That's where our garden planner makes things so simple. As you add plants to your plan, it automatically spaces them and calculates how many will fit into each bed. Early in the spring, it's also a possibility that young seedlings can form the perfect snack for hungry birds like pigeons. So those early plantings I like to cover with some sort of mesh or netting to stop that from happening. Plus, it's also worth keeping a few spare plants behind just in case they do get eaten. Most vegetables will need consistent moisture to support steady growth and in time effortless fruit, pod, bulb, root or leaf production. Now water deeply if you can, aiming for around 1 to 2 inches or 3 to 5 centimetres of water per week, and that will depend of course on weather conditions and the stage of growth of what you're growing. Mulching around plants too will help to lock in soil moisture and keep the roots nice and cool in warmer weather. Properly prepared soil, lavished with plenty of lovely organic matter, shouldn't need any extra fertilisers or soil amendments, but there's no harm in applying additional organic natural fertilisers during the growing season, things like bloodfish and bone meal, chicken manure or a plant-based alternative. Additional feeds will help to support especially hungry plants like tomatoes, squash family plants and cabbages for optimal growth. Inspect vegetables regularly for any signs of pests or diseases and remove affected plant material quickly to stop problems spreading. Protecting vegetable plants from pests and diseases is another key to success, and I prefer to use natural methods such as attracting pest predators like ladybugs or ladybirds using companion plants like calendula, sweet alyssum or flowering herbs like fennel or dill. Crop rotation is another effective strategy for preventing the build-up of pests and diseases. By rotating the position of crops in the same plant family each season, we can reduce the risk of pests and pathogens building up in the soil, thereby improving the chances of healthier, more resilient plants. And the garden planner can help with that too, by showing you where crops in the same plant family were growing in previous seasons, so you can choose a different location for the current season. We've loads of videos exploring more on all of the points touched on today, which I've pulled together into a playlist that'll pop up right at the end of the video. In the meantime, whether you are planning your first or 100th garden, I would like to invite you to try our garden planner. You can use the 7-day free trial and there's no need to input any payment details, and you can even print off your plan and your accompanying planting schedule to keep forever. Just scan the QR code or follow the link to start your trial. I'll catch you next time.